Welcome back to Euro Football Daily, where today we're looking at 3 January signings to get Newcastle into the Champions League. Mykhaylo Mudryk. High on Newcastle's wishlist in the summer was a winger to bolster Eddie Howe's attack, with Moussa Diaby their most high-profile target in this area. But with Bayer Leverkusen reportedly valuing their prized attacker between £50 and £60 million, the Magpies were unwilling to meet the German outfit's asking price, and ended up spending the bulk of their budget on Swedish striker Alexander Isak instead. That gamble has paid off so far, not so much in the case of Isak, who despite instantly impressing on arrival in England has been out since September with a hamstring injury that he won't return from before the World Cup, but in the case of the right wing position where Miguel Almiron is enjoying the best form of his Magpies career. At the time of writing, the Paraguay international has scored 5 goals in his last 5 Premier League appearances, helping Howe's side stay unbeaten since August despite missing the likes of Isak, Callum Wilson, Bruno Guimaraes, Jonjo Shelvey and Alain Saint-Maximin at various points during that run. It's no surprise that he's reportedly in line for a new contract. But despite Almiron's excellent displays, Howe cannot over-rely on him in the absence of Saint-Maximin, whose injuries in the past have had a far more significant impact on results. In 2020-2021, for example, the side won just 2 of the 13 league games that he missed. And while the improved quality in the rest of the side has helped compensate this time round, another winger is needed if they want to seriously challenge for that top 4 spot. And what better way to strengthen that by getting someone who has lit up the Champions League this term, with Mykhaylo Mudryk, the latest sensation to spring up at Shakhtar Donetsk. The 21-year-old has been one of the most lethal forwards in Europe's premier competition, registering 3 goals and 2 assists in 5 group stage games as the Ukrainian outfit, heavily depleted by a string of departures in the summer, have held their own. He's also impressed domestically, scoring 5 and assisting 11 in his last 17 Ukrainian Premier League appearances. And he'd also be a good fit for Newcastle stylistically. Like Saint-Maximin and Almiron, Mudryk's main weapon is his blistering pace, with his mind-blowing acceleration in particular catching the eye of the Champions League audience this year. He's still very raw, attempting 5.3 dribbles per 90 in the Champions League, but only beating his man with 1.8 of them, representing a poor 34% take-on success rate. He also takes just 1.6 shots and creates just 1 chance per 90, which isn't exactly disastrous given the calibre of opposition he's been facing in Europe this term, but it still leaves a lot of room for improvement. But both Saint-Maximin and Almiron were also incredibly raw when they arrived at St James's Park. For example, until this season, Saint-Maximin had never averaged over 0.36 expected goals per 90 in a Newcastle shirt, which is around the same as Mudryk is managing in the Champions League this term, while Almiron has never topped his 1.7 shots per 90. With his pace, directness and excellent decision making in the final third, Mudryk could thrive in a high pressing side that have been devastating in transition at points this season. Now it's undeniable this is going to be an extremely hard deal to do given that Real Madrid, Manchester City and Arsenal are all interested in his services, and the Shakhtar sporting director quoted that he wanted a price of over €100 million for his young star. But let's be honest, the Magpies have the money and this would be a statement signing. James Maddison. While Mudryk would provide extra strength and flair to the Newcastle front line, Eddie Howe's team is still missing a dedicated creator in midfield. That's not to say they aren't functioning well in the centre of the park, by the way, but Howe's more aggressive tactics, plus the signings of Joe Willock and Bruno Guimaraes, have helped to transform the midfield, which is now almost unrecognisably dynamic when compared to the darker days under Steve Bruce. In the Magpies' high-pressing system, Bruno G and Joelinton both make over 4 tackles and interceptions per 90. In 2020-2021, Bruce's last season in charge, only Isaac Hayden managed this. Pretty mad when you consider the Magpies were keeping just 39% possession at the time, and so had way more opportunities to win the ball back than they do now. And as a result of this high press, their output has greatly increased in the final third. They now take 15.1 shots per game, more than anyone else in the league bar Arsenal, Liverpool and Man City. Whereas back in 2021, they were averaging just 10.4 shots a match, the 5th worst record in the Prem. So when it comes to creating chances, Newcastle aren't in bad shape at all, especially when you consider that 6 players who've played over 500 minutes in the league are producing over a key pass per 90. But that doesn't mean they can't still improve. Kieran Trippier is the only Magpie to register over 2 a match, and over half come from set pieces. Getting in someone who can produce from open play will give Howe's side an extra edge, whilst Trippier has missed 18 games through injury over the past 2 years. And with the Englishman set to feature at the World Cup too, Howe could probably do with someone who can take up more responsibility for chance creation if the club captain needs a rest. There are options out there. Michael Olise would be an exciting signing from Crystal Palace, but has had fitness problems of his own and has 4 years left on his contract, as well as playing in a slightly wider position. Aston Villa's Emi Buendia would also be a good candidate, certainly possesses the off-the-ball work rate needed for Howe's side, but is under a long-term contract as well. So we've gone for the least imaginative name, probably the most sensible choice though, of James Maddison, who was being chased by the Magpies in the summer. The attacking midfielder is in some of the finest form of his career and his contract expires in 2024, even though Leicester effectively priced him out of a move with a reported asking price of 60 million. The longer the Foxes are made to wait on him signing a new deal, the more likely they are to lower his valuation, and January could be an opportune time for Newcastle to pounce. Despite Leicester's troubles this term, Maddison's creative output has remained very good, laying on 2.2 chances per 90 with 68% of them coming from open play. He's a goal threat too, taking 3 shots a match and scoring 6 in his first 10 league appearances this term, while his versatility means he can play as the most advanced midfielder of the 3 or fill in for Almiron on the right if needed. His presence in the side will also lessen the creative burden on Bruno Guimaraes. The Brazilian can focus even more on delivering the line-breaking passes from deep that made Newcastle such a threat in transition. What's more, Maddison also puts up 3 tackles and interceptions per 90, so Eddie Howe won't be losing any of the defensive tenacity that makes his midfield so functional. With Leicester in a relegation battle, convincing them to part with their most important player will be tough, but if Maddison's head can be turned, Newcastle could get hold of a weapon they currently don't possess. Alex Grimaldo. Another area of the pitch where Newcastle have been playing without a specialist right now is left back, a position that has been primarily occupied by left-sided centre-half Dan Burn in recent weeks. Matty Targett has rarely put a foot wrong since arriving at the club on loan in January, and he made his move permanent for around £16 million in the summer, but hasn't started a game since September with injuries and is certainly upgradable. Benfica's Alex Grimaldo is the same age as Targett at 27, so is no more of a long-term option than the former Villa man. But with his contract expiring in the summer, he could be a bargain capture in January, despite his widely reported €60 million release clause, and a move to Newcastle is the kind of fresh challenge he could be interested in after nearly 8 years in Lisbon. There's no denying what Grimaldo would bring to Howe's side in the attacking sense. The Mazia graduate has averaged over 2 key passes per 90 in 3 of the last 4 seasons, hitting a career high 2.7 this term. So if the Magpies are priced out of a move for a number 10 style player like Maddison or a prize winger like Mudryk, Grimaldo's output from the left would at least partly compensate. But that doesn't mean he's a slouch defensively. He's been one of the star performers for the Eagles this term, with new manager Roger Schmidt seeing them go unbeaten in the league and the Champions League. But while he has been directly involved in 5 goals, he's also making 3.8 tackles and interceptions per 90 with an 84% tackle success rate, up from 3 with 65% last term. Without context, that doesn't look that impressive given Targett makes 4.1 tackles and interceptions a match. But given Benfica are averaging almost 70% possession under Schmidt, and it's clear how much work Grimaldo is now doing. In this sense, he should slot in seamlessly to Howe's group of press monsters. Of course, there's always going to be question marks over a peak age player whose only top flight experiences come in Portugal, but as gambles go, Grimaldo is pretty low risk given his contract situation. Sporting director Dan Ashworth might well be taking note. So that was our list of 3 January signings to get Newcastle into the Champions League. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like button, hit subscribe. Thanks very much for watching. We'll see you later.